Okay, so there was an interesting video that people were tagging me about or talking about on Twitter, and I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on it as someone who actually plays the franchise of Fire Emblem and what was said. No shots to Arlo or no shots to anybody that actually agrees with that type of take. I just wanted to give my opinion as somebody who is a very long time Fire Emblem fan and someone who also doesn't like to see prices going up when it comes to certain things. But I do think that it's a little bit dramatic and probably off base to really make it to where this is like the worst or scariest thing that Nintendo's ever done, to the point to where it's unhinged and you can't think of anything else. I think that's a little bit extra, and I'm going to explain a lot of things as somebody, once again, who has in-depth knowledge on the Fire Emblem franchise. I'm going to talk about a lot of things with that, so let's get into it. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers, or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. So once again, there's the video from Arlo where he's worried about the future pricing of games because Fire Emblem, the physical version of the game, officially from Nintendo, will cost $80, and Fire Emblem is a smaller IP in his eyes compared to Nintendo's biggest franchises, so there was some cause for concern for that, considering, like, let's say Smash Brothers, obviously a lot bigger franchise, so there was some concern in terms of them pricing Fire Emblem that, because what are they going to do with maybe other games? So there's a problem with this, though. Nintendo themselves actually consider Fire Emblem to be a major franchise. They've actually felt that Fire Emblem was a major franchise now for almost a decade, going back to Fire Emblem Fates and how well that game sold. And you also have to remember, and I don't think sales numbers were thrown around, but Fire Emblem Awakening on the Nintendo 3DS, that game, they wanted to sell around 250,000 units to keep the series going. They sold 1.92 million and probably over 2 million units plus at this point. And then a few years later, they sold Fire Emblem Fates, and they had multiple versions, and the digital versions and the physical and all the different type of stuff with that. And that sold over 3 million units plus. And then there's Fire Emblem Three Houses, and that sold over 5 million units plus or more. It's right around there or more on the Nintendo Switch 1. So this series has progressively been going up with the main installments of the game, and Nintendo's considered Fire Emblem to be a major franchise for a while now at this point. So it's definitely not as small as some content creators are trying to claim that it is. I think the problem is that they're comparing it to like Smash Brothers, and they're comparing it to like Zelda Breath of the Wild and like the 30 million sales, or, you know, the Super Mario Odyssey. They're comparing it to that, and those are like the craziest highest number. Just because Fire Emblem doesn't hit those numbers doesn't mean it's not a successful or big or popular franchise. So you have to keep that into play when you're talking about this, and I think that many of them didn't even know the sales numbers of Fire Emblem. They just know that it doesn't sell like Mario, Zelda, Smash, Pokemon, or even like Splatoon. So Nintendo still considers it a major franchise, and they also consider it a good selling franchise. Now, here's the thing, and I want to make sure that I stress this. This is super important, guys. I'm not here to defend $80 physical games. I actually made a video talking about this, that I do not like the price of $80 for the physical edition of Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, and I feel that it should be $70, and I stand on that. I think that a 70-60 split for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave would be more appealing. Obviously, it's a bit more consumer friendly, and I think that people would be fine with that. Obviously, this video probably wouldn't even be made at all if that was the case. But what I am going to say is that a lot has happened since then, since we got the price reveal for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave and Nintendo announced the physical digital pricing tier. Like, a lot has happened. Sony has opted to destroy physical media outright, for the most part, with new games. From January 2028 and beyond, they're just saying, no more physical games. Our consumers like digital. We're going to be greedy with this, and we're going to go with an all digital future. And cut out the middleman, cut out the culture behind gaming and collecting and the value and trading and all of that. Just get rid of all of that. You guys don't matter. It's all about digital. And from what we understand, now they could change this, but they don't even give a digital discount, or they're not going to give a digital discount for brand new games like Nintendo does with physical digital pricing. So they're not going to do that. It's not like you're going to get games for cheaper because they are cutting out the middlemen and they are going straight to just digital download. But you also have to remember that Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is $70 digital. And if you really want a physical copy for $70 and you're upset that Nintendo put it at $80, then you can pre-order the game at Walmart or Amazon and get it for that same price as digital. Nintendo's been doing this, I guess it was since Yoshi, but Amazon and Walmart have been coming out and saying, hey, if you pre-order our game here before the launch date, you can get it for the $10 off and match the digital pricing. So I think that people should absolutely take advantage of that. If you don't like the $80 price and feel that $70 is better for the physical version, then go ahead and get that pre-order in on Amazon or at Walmart and get that cheaper pricing on there. Now, you also have to look at it, not only is Sony destroying physical games media, but Xbox seems to be getting rid of physical media because they barely ship any copies of games to the stores now. Like, my local Walmart looks like this for the Xbox Series location. There's barely any games. It's all ball and gun games. There's not a lot of variety at all. Obviously, people are not buying physical games on Xbox. They're not shipping a lot of physical games to stores, and Microsoft has been trying to destroy physical games for the better part of a decade plus now at this point. If you look at what they originally tried to do with the Xbox One, and then what they did with Game Pass. Game Pass is a way to completely eradicate owning games and even having physical games. They wanted everybody to do Game Pass. Game Pass isn't physical. They just offered physical games as like, okay, well, this doesn't work out or people don't want it, they can do this. But they were pushing for all digital and no ownership, a rental service, a perpetual rental service of digital games. They clearly do not want physical games to be in the future. And I'm pretty sure Asha Sharma, how she's budgeting and she's looking at the numbers and making decisions based off of the numbers, she's probably looking at those physical sales and saying, yeah, it's like 90% plus digital to physical. People, when it comes to the actual gamers, aren't buying physical games. And many of the different specialty places like Limited Run or I Am 8-Bit, they don't even do special prints of Xbox games when it comes up. They just do PlayStation and Nintendo. So that's the problem that we're dealing with when it comes to that. I don't think Microsoft is going to be some type of big defender of physical games going forward. Now, a lot of Nintendo content creators don't know much about or play Fire Emblem. They don't understand the type of value that Fire Emblem truly brings to the table. Honestly, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave will probably have more content and value than a large majority of Nintendo's single-player games for this generations, especially if it follows in the footsteps of Fire Emblem Three Houses. Check out the stats on this game, and I got it from How Long to Beat from the website. The overview, how long to beat the game, 75.5 hours, and that's fairly accurate. I beat the game on my first route on the hard difficulty in about 80 something hours, so that's about right. The main story can be beat in about 49 hours, but all of the main plus sides get you that 76 hours. But if you want to do the completionist run, where you're doing all the different houses and getting everything in the game and doing all of the side quests and all of that, that's going to take you 210 hours, because as you play the game, New Game Plus, it gets easier and easier. So that's the reason why you can complete the other houses in a faster time. Plus, you're just better at the game after you've beaten it, so you'll just naturally go through things a bit quicker. And Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, it adds another route when it comes to the different characters you can use. Before, it was you have your character, then you have the three between Dimitri, Claude, and Edelgard, but now you have 4 different characters that you can have, and we don't know if there's going to be like the church route that like Fire Emblem Three Houses have, or like a separate route when it comes to Fortune's Weave. So this is obviously in the game, so that might be a whole route, kind of like how it was when it comes to what happened with Three Houses. So this could be a game that gives you significantly more value when it comes to the amount of game in there and how long it takes than most of Nintendo's games that they release for this generation, because Fire Emblem is right up there at the top, if not the top. There's not many single player games that can match what Fire Emblem does from a main and sides, even just main story and completionist run. So keep that in mind. Once again, I do not condone, and I'm not saying that I want the big $80 games or anything, but I will say Fire Emblem gives you more than enough value for the money based off of what we're seeing here. And Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave looks like it's a real follow-up. It is. I mean, it's a sequel. It's a sequel, it's a prequel, it's a something to Fire Emblem Three Houses. Now, quality-wise, we got to talk about that, because this could be a 90+ rated game. Fire Emblem Three Houses was voted Player's Choice Game of the Year for the Keighley Awards, or the Game Awards, back in 2019, and it won a lot of awards for the quality of an SRPG that it is. It also has a 89 on Metacritic and got points knocked down for its tech issues and graphics being bad. Now, Fortune's Weave seems to fix all of these issues with the graphics being bad and the tech problems that the game had. From the gameplay that they've shown off, it looks significantly smoother. So if they nail the gameplay being awesome like it is in most Fire Emblem games, and the story being great, we could be looking at a high 80s or 90+ Metacritic game. That'll be Nintendo's first since Pokemon Pocopia back in March and Donkey Kong Bonanza back in July last year for the Nintendo Switch 2. So that would be awesome. More quality games, the better, makes the system look better. But Fire Emblem has always had a really high bar when it comes to the Metacritic or the ratings for the game. You look at Fire Emblem Awakening, 90+, Fire Emblem Fates, high 80s, Fire Emblem Three Houses, high 80s. So the main games where they put everybody on the main teams, we're not counting like Fire Emblem Engage and some of the other stuff, but the main ones, those ones usually do really well. Considering the amount of voice work, because pretty much everything's voiced here. They're talking about the voice actors on Twitter like it's super hype. They've got a lot of voice work here. The file size is a lot bigger than what we saw for Three Houses. Multiple studios working on this, because it does seem like it's going to be Koei Tecmo, Intelligent Systems, and Nintendo all teaming up for this behemoth of an SRPG title. I think Fire Emblem fans will find, and I think people just in general, that this game will be money well spent. Even if you opt for the $70 digital version, you're going to get a lot of content and value here. And I'll also add that Fire Emblem games often become rare for some reason and get more valuable. So physical does mean something. It is valuable to Fire Emblem fans. And I think that's one of the reasons why you don't see a ton of Fire Emblem fans going nuts about this. It's kind of more of people who don't understand Fire Emblem or don't play Fire Emblem or don't like it for the most part. And they're looking at it and thinking, oh my gosh, now the games that I like could go through a higher price point. But I don't think that's the case. Once again, I don't think that's the case with everything. I think Fire Emblem, it's because of the development of it, it's because of the cost of it, the amount of money they're paying to voice actors, the amount of money that they're just spending on this game. And they do consider it a major franchise. I think it's more along the lines of that than anything else. So I don't really think there's anything to get worried about right now, at least. But we'll see in the future. But what do you think about everything that we talked about here with Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave and the value of it? Physical and not, let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and Fire Emblem videos right here on screen. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.